Hello, friend. Welcome. Carm Capriotto here with a special recording from ASA Colorado 2020. Now, you get a chance to be a fly on the wall with Carolyn, Coquillette, and Scott Brown.
And when we start to showcase ourselves, our professionalism, like awesome work we do every day, that like lifts us up, brings us to the table, allows us to obviously justify the correct pricing that we should be getting for our services. We can employ, we can better pay our technicians. We can have more beautiful facilities. Like all that stuff ends up paying dividends to us and the hard work that we need to do for the long term.
Welcome, aftermarketers, to Remarkable Results Radio. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results. Hello, friend. Carm Capriotto, the Automotive Aftermarket Podcast guy, always pursuing excellence and quality content through the essential voices of the aftermarket. Now, you're in for a treat as Scott Brown and Carolyn Coquillette sit with me at the ASA Colorado Summit in January 2020 with a hard-hitting discussion. Hey, Apex 2019 is in the record books, and I must say that Apex lived up to presenting leading-edge technology from suppliers, but they also did a great job of showcasing the emerging tech of tomorrow. Now, Repair Shop HQ is ready to debut, and if you earn your living in the aftermarket, you can't miss Apex. You've got plenty of time to plan November 3rd through the 5th, 2020. Write that in your calendar. Apex, now more than ever. Hey, if you are new to the podcast, well, we produce another really great and important resource, the Town Hall Academy. Search on your listening app for the Town Hall Academy and be sure that you're subscribed. Don't want to miss one of these single-subject forums that are aired live every Friday and repurposed as a podcast every Thursday. It's a fantastic resource for everything aftermarket. Hey, my guest for this open and transparent discussion is Carolyn Coquillette from Luscious Garage in San Francisco and the CEO of Shop-Ware, along with Scott Brown from Connie and Dick's in Claremont, California, and the CEO of Diagnostic Network. Now, find the talking points with Scott and Carolyn's bios and links to their previous episodes at remarkableresults.biz/E516. We touch on some of the most trending topics in the aftermarket, including data, communication with your customer, pricing, and the fact that our customers just don't know how we make our sausage. And it's time that they learned. Hey, a warm welcome to my two friends, Scott Brown from Connie and Dick's and Diag.net, and Carolyn Coquillette is here from Luscious Garage and Shop-Ware. We're here at ASA Colorado Summit 2020. Here we're in the lobby of Lincoln Tech. This is so cool. And you guys are doing an ADAS class tomorrow.
We're doing a Shop-Ware, shop management type class.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But there will be some elements of ADAS inspection.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's your software and you're running it. But how did you guys team up on this?
Yeah, so I did this presentation at Vision last year, which is called Don't Trust Me, How to Empower Customers to Value Your Service. And it's not necessarily specific to Shop-Ware. It's about, all the different tools that shops can use at their inside of their business to try to better communicate with their customers.
All right.
The opportunity was to bring in Scott, who also does a presentation on how to best present information, rich media, photos, etc., how to communicate the technical detail up to your customers. So he's got his own curriculum that he's been building.
He's so good at that, too, being a photographer. I mean, I look at your video stuff. I don't know who does that. Cecil B. somebody. I mean, you're really good. I mean, being from California, you gotta be good.
Yeah. I like to hang around with really good people.
Yeah, well,
that's
you do that good. So I see that there was kind of a marriage in how could we take the processes and some of the tech that's needed to produce great content for the customer, and then how to have good disciplines to get the software marriage, because the software is great, but if you don't have a way to feed it,
it boils down to communicating what it is that you're actually doing to these automobiles.
Yeah.
We're working on some very complex problems. Consumers don't usually see how we make the sausage. I mean, these tools, you need to be able to tell the story.
Sure.
You need to illustrate what you're doing to the car, why you're doing it, right? And then when you're done doing it, you need to show them what the results are. In most cases, in the past, people would just be writing a check, right? Car came in broken, they fixed it, wrote a check. There might be some written words about what happened, but usually the consumer doesn't get a good, clear picture. And we're trying to add more value. This is what we've been challenged with for years, and we've now been using Carolyn's product for a little over 3 years, and it's just done wonders for the way that we can now present knowledge and information to the customer.
Yeah.
And it also covers our butts, right? So we're documenting, and we were there, we did it.
You know, there's two things that have happened to me today, and I love, I'm always listening and engaged. Earlier today, someone said training is maintenance. Mm-hmm. And it was great. It was on the Town Hall Academy. And then you just said people don't know how we make our sausage. And I have to tell you, those are two incredible mindsets. If you put them inside, you're going to say, oh my God, I can do something with that mentality. Teach the people, the customer, our guest, our client, what we do, and figure out, and don't just write off training as something that I don't need. Realize that it's something that makes me better always.
Yeah.
And to be totally transparent, Carolyn and Shop-Ware is a sponsor on the Town Hall Academy. So glad you're with us. And I just wanted people to realize that we're doing this because these are important discussions to have. So thank you for being here, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, there's no such thing as perfect communication. It's all a work in progress. To your point, training is maintenance, right? We're never perfect technicians. The minute we think we've got it mastered, that's when the technician gods come down and slap us, and it really gets a bad day the day you think you've got it all figured out. It's the same for how we're running our relationships with our customers. We're always trying to improve our relationships with our customers and trying to better explain and justify what we're charging on the cars. And we all have enormous pressure in our businesses to stay profitable. Obviously, there's increasing costs to run your business, to have the right tools. I mean, in Scott's shop, he's got all the greatest equipment in the world, but he has to be able to show that to his customer for them to understand not only the quality of his facility and the services that he provides, but also why he charges what he charges. And you're going to have some of the best diagnostics in the business at his shop, and it's not going to come for free. And so he's really perfected how to put that front and center in how he's presenting his information to his customers. And that differentiates his business. It also helps those customers understand the value of what they're buying.
He's actually helping them with the why.
Here's an interesting story. We just had an insurance agent or an insurance adjuster come into the shop a couple of days ago to look at a car that was smashed up. It got fixed at the body shop, but it still had some problems. Had the emergency braking light coming on the dash. So we checked it out. We found out that the front radar unit was bad and it needed to be replaced. And we had a full-on estimate, including our analysis, what the repair process was, and then the actual calibration. And it had all the steps in there. And he read that and he goes, I didn't realize there was that much involved with changing out that radar sensor. He says, wow, there's a lot going on here. I go, haven't you been writing tickets and, paying for this stuff in the past? He goes, yeah, all the time. I go, how do you not know this? He goes, well, nobody's ever shown me it. So,
and so that confirms to the level of detail you're telling your customer. Would you have done this for a non-insurance person?
Any customer. So our jobs are already built in. We build that job in so that we're doing all of the things. We're identifying what's on the car, what's required to calibrate this, the road testing, the validation of a pre and post scan, and then how many miles we're actually driving it, and then how we're returning it back into service, operating properly.
So it doesn't matter. If I came in there for a brake job, would the detail be that good?
Yeah, the brake job would include all the inspection items that we would normally do on the vehicle, the state of health of maybe the brake fluid, any of the other brake materials that we're not doing any repair on. We're going to have a state of health on all that stuff. So the customer leaves, they understand where their brake system is today.
We've heard so many great stories about customers saying, wow, this is unbelievable. And then they show all that stuff to their friends and say, you're not getting this and I am. Is that a revolution going on in the customer relationship side of our business?
You think about it, we have been previously, historically, the conduit through which cars have been fixed. And in a way, that's appropriate. I mean, we are fixing the car, but ultimately the car is the customer's problem. It's not we're not the problem. Do you know what I mean? And when everything has to be passed through us, it's like, take my word for it. Inevitably, it's easy for the customer to kill the messenger, right? That shop gave me bad news. That shop charged me all this money, blah, 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 blah. Instead of saying, wow, that shop really helped me get my car back on the road quickly and safely. So being able to sort of flip the script and be able to show people what they're driving and how you're trying to help them and empowering them to make the decision about what they want to do to fix it, that's really meaningful to people and actually helps pull back the curtain and them to appreciate what you're doing, but also their responsibilities for the car that they're driving, right? So then suddenly, instead of having this anxiety or like, oh God, my magic machine is broken, they can actually say, oh, this is science, not religion. This is what my car needs. Okay, great. Well then, let's fix it. Let's fix it right. Good, better, best. Whatever they decide to do is their decision. But it's not about what the shop is necessarily preaching. It's fact. It's what do you want? This is the information. What's great about that is that's a universal. There's no like variance of like, do you really need brakes? Yes or no? Like if you need brakes, you need brakes. And any other shop that looks at it is going to be able to tell. You're going to be able to justify, yeah, that's why this person recommended you to get these brakes. Now maybe, their price is X and your price is Y, and that's based on whatever value proposition you can make to that customer. Convenience, other additional benefits, quality of service, warranty, other kinds of things that you can bolster your pricing with. But, ultimately the customer comes away going, wow, I get it. Like, cool. Like and that's the experience that they have online every single day. They're informing themselves. They're consuming all this content. People there's that statistic that people read like 300 yards of social media every day. Like they are just like sponges to see all of this action that's going on. Meanwhile, they're like one of the coolest things, one of the most complicated things that they use on a daily basis is a complete mystery. Yeah. And the minute you start showing them, which of course is the world that we live in. And previous to now, there's been this assumption that, customers don't want to know that detail. They just want to come in and sit in a leather couch and get an espresso, and then they want to give me $800 and leave and they'll be happy. And it's like, no, first of all, no one really wants to go to the repair shop in the first place, regardless of whether you give them an espresso or not. They're being inconvenienced. And so then you're left to justify what the $800 was about. And instead, the preconceived notion was, well, we have this great relationship with the customer, and I have this really like social bubbly person at the counter, and we're like doing all this stuff to essentially compensate for the fact that we're not doing a very good job educating them about what's going on with their car. Our actual job is to educate them about what's going on with their car. Now we have to be the translators. It's not to say like, oh, here's the repair manual. Good luck. You figure out what the result is.
P0, whatever. It doesn't
right.
compute.
We're helping translate that. We're the liaisons, right, between these two parties. But we're really bringing those two, disenfranchised parties back together again and saying, hey, customer meet car meet customer. Right. Let us help you work this out together. So I think that's where people suddenly feel like the world makes sense again. And they suddenly realize what we're trying to do here is to help them.
The Apex 19 is in the record books and brought the best and brightest together to create an experience like no other. Now, I was so impressed with the impact Apex has in presenting emerging technology. They are on the cutting edge of the connected car, and you'll find everything you need to know on what you'll need to do to stay ahead of the curve. Regarding emerging technology, Apex will feature again in 2020 the latest trends that will have an impact on the service professional and equipment. Wow. See, feel, and touch the latest tools and equipment that will bring efficiencies to your business. And in 2020, there's going to be a separate section dedicated to the service professional shop. It'll be called Repair Shop Headquarters, and it's the place to be if you earn your living in the aftermarket. And for training, Apex will present some of the best aftermarket technician and management trainers in 2020. So mark your calendar right now. Put the date on it. Apex 2020, November 3rd through the 5th in Las Vegas. Listen right here to learn all about the exciting events and when you can start registering.
Yeah, I think Carolyn, she said that the car is their problem, right? So the way I like to look at it is that, we know that the vehicle is probably one of the most sophisticated, complicated devices that we use every day. And speaking to industry, we need to stop behaving that it's not. right? So we need to treat it as such, right? So it's an opportunity to educate the client, but it takes an extreme degree of talent, knowledge, expertise, tooling, equipment, facility, procedures, processes to make sure that these services turn out the way that they should.
And it's all on our shoulders. Like we, as the independent service provider, are being asked to do all of that. We are performing all those miracles. And when you look at the arrangement of the parties, right, there's the aftermarket, and then you have the driving public. The aftermarket, $370 billion a year, U.S. aftermarket. Driving public, 225 million cars on the road. And the threshold through which all of that transacts is through independent service providers. So every single dollar that is spent on auto repair that goes into the aftermarket has to pass through an independent repair facility. And the people who actually install all of those parts and use all those tools to keep all those 225 million cars running down the road, a technician had to touch that car, an independent service provider had to host and employ that technician. And so in both cases, the aftermarket has kind of been like, oh, you guys are the installers. Oh. You're just the monkeys that run around and, we get to keep all the money. And obviously the consuming driving public has been like, oh God, they're all just a bunch of crooks and they're all just trying to rip us off. This arrangement in both cases makes them keep more of the money and we get less of it. Yeah. And the minute we start to empower ourselves as the people who are actually, we're the hands that rock the cradle here, people.
Right.
And when we start to showcase ourselves, our professionalism, all the awesome work we do every day, that lifts us up, brings us to the table, allows us to obviously justify the correct pricing that we should be getting for our services. We can employ, we can better pay our technicians. We can have more beautiful facilities. All that stuff ends up paying dividends to us and the hard work that we need to do for the long term. So I think it's overdue that we've been able to draw more attention to ourselves and more value to what we're doing.
This has been a fabulous rant of yours. I love it.
I have a little passion on this topic.
No,
just
really?
A little bit.
Oh my! And is this part of what you're teaching tomorrow? Are we going to hear that tomorrow?
We are.
That's great. Because, and in fact, I'm glad you did it here so that we can broadcast it as long and as hard as we possibly can. Wrote down a couple of things while you were on your roll, man, and I loved it. Thank you. I wrote down peace of mind, giving that consumer who's sitting there, who's going to give you $800, a real peace of mind as to why they spent it. And, that's that education piece. And my friend Bob Greenwood talks about it all the time. He says, we're a knowledge-based industry. And we need to act like that. We need to be paid for what we know. We need to teach people, what it is that we do. You're exactly right.
Is the consumer feeling better if they think they got ripped off? They don't actually want to feel ripped off. Consumers want to feel good about the experience that they have. And when you give them a reason to feel good, that's the way they're going to be. This idea that we've had this antagonistic relationship with our customers all this time, I think is based entirely on misunderstanding from both sides of the discussion. And if we start to work together and focus on the actual problem, which is that automakers are making extremely complicated cars nowadays, and you need to drive them to get to work or to take your kids to school, great, we can all be partners, right? We can all actually work together to accomplish the larger goal, which is to keep everyone, moving around safely.
We go to the doctor for our annual visit so he can read our blood work and talk to us about how we're doing. And he calls it up on his screen and he goes, yeah, good. Keep doing what you're doing. And I said, no, wait a minute. Let's just relate what that just happened to the automotive repair business. Okay. Sitting there waiting to give the $800. They trust us. We know they don't need to know what we do. And I go to the doc and I says, find that bedside manner and tell me if my LDL is right and where my cholesterol number really is. I want to know. Mm-hmm. And I want you to tell me what, if it's on the edge, what I need to do, because I really want to know. Carolyn, do our customers really want to know? Like I want to know about these things from my doctor?
The customer is following their maintenance routine. And then when they bring the car in, just like you're going to your doctor, and when they bring the car in, you're able to sort of show them, these are the things that we need to be regularly checking, and this is how you did. And if there's something that wasn't okay, this is what we need to do about it. Okay, we brought it back into spec.
But you said earlier they're reading 3 or 4 yards of social media, a minute or a day or whatever. And so
practically a minute.
So they're learned. Okay. Yeah.
they're learned. So if they're coming in for a service, they may be just studying exactly what it is that you're doing, on their phone. If you come by and confirm what they read or they know, that's developing a tight bond, that peace of mind, that trust in relationship. So we shouldn't forget not to, have that 5-page repair order with all that stuff in it.
There's a fine line between communication and overwhelm. You can let's think about when you go to a good training class. Sometimes you go to trainings and it's all about you being told how the instructor is so smart. It's not actually about conveying information and fostering understanding from the audience. Do you know what I mean? Versus really good training, it's actually not about the trainer. It's about the student and how the student can grow. So, ultimately the goal is comprehension for the customer. And it's still a human interface. Like, we're people, they're people. We have to be able to read them. We have to be able to answer their questions. It's not one size fits all. So how much detail you want to disclose, what's going on with the car, how you show value. And, shops have different points of view about this. We pretend like, you need to do X, Y, DVI, and you need to do blah, blah, blah. You need to be able to say this. We're professionals. We know how we need to talk to our own customers. The question is how to just get it out in front of you instead of carrying it verbally or, carrying it with like a feeling, actually getting it written down so that people can see that it's, it's out there, it's factual. It's not it's not a feeling. It's technology. I think that's how would you?
Yeah, it's storytelling basically. That's how it boils down to.
Yes.
So we're telling a story. We don't need to give them the 5 pages of intricate detail. We need to tell them the story. We need to tell them, hey,
if it's that month-long diag of that trouble car, it might be 5 pages.
Yeah,
they've been along for the whole ride.
But basically, the data should speak for itself. It should be able to tell a story. But it also does a really good job. Again, we talked about how technical the cars are. And a lot of times when that warning light comes on, that car, the car driver then starts to say, whoa, what's going on with the car? I don't feel anything different. I'm not going to worry about it, right? So they put off that visit for like 6 months. By the time it shows up to the repair center, now they've got multiple things they need to look at. They need to prioritize. So they record everything. They prioritize. They fix the one thing that needs to be fixed right now, but there could be a couple of things that are pending. And so if that customer leaves after paying a bill, and then that light comes on 2 weeks later, and it's the same light, but it's coming on for a different problem, you won't see the other problem until you get back into it.
Sure.
And display the data, display the technical merit to what you did before, to where you're at now. Now the customer has a deeper understanding as to what the heck is going on with their car, and there's where the trust is built, right? If in the old days, the light came on,
they blamed you for both.
The light's on again.
They blamed you for the second one.
It's doing the same thing.
You didn't fix it.
Yeah, it didn't fix it.
So that information, I could see the value of that. Now, you've been doing that at Connie and Dick's for probably eons, given more information than ever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your business proves that that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And what do your customers say? Just give me a testimonial from a customer.
Here's one that a customer came in and talked to my daughter that works on the front counter, and she said, hey, I've never seen this type of stuff before. Did you guys have this whole system custom built for you? My daughter goes, no, some lady my dad knows writes this software company or whatever. That's who we're using. So that's how she told the story.
In her backyard, she does that. Yeah. In the garage.
But I'll tell you, the customer.
So the answer is basically yes.
Yeah. So the customer, though, is just, they are getting an experience in our shop.
It's to the point where they ask the question, where'd you get this stuff?
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah. We're transacting in the way they expect to be transacted with.
Wow.
That's really what's going on.
The comment about the light being on again.
Yeah.
It's funny when OBD2, whatever, since check engine light dawned, people who were driving cars were used to driving cars that didn't have that light, or that light sucked, or whatever. And nowadays, my understanding is people who have been driving since OBD2 that don't have experience prior to a car that didn't have a sticky mill or any other like super digital communication method, they don't have this context of like, oh, that light's, I can ignore that. That doesn't mean anything. That's an idiot, or it's not an idiot light, or whatever. that they actually have more anxiety when they see a light come on, because that's the world that they live in now. Like, oh no, the frowny face appeared and I don't want a frowny face. I want a smiley face. Mm-hmm. And so they actually are more inclined to bring the car in because the digital thing is speaking to me. Whereas they probably, they could probably have a bad strut and a bald tire and they have no clue, right?
Yeah.
They're responding more to the lights now.
But the check engine light, it is subjective. I drive a lot at night and I see a lot of check engine lights on in cars. And it's like people just keep driving them. And I think that a lot of them sense, they go, oh, what, is the car doing something different? Oh, I'm not going to worry about it. Or they go check the oil, or they lift the hood because it says check engine, right? So they look, there's an engine.
Oh, it's still there.
It's still there.
What's the adoption rate of the new tech, be it DVI, cloud-based stuff? I mean, is the industry still way behind the curve? And the things that you're saying, how many naysayers are going to be out there and say, Scott and Carolyn are, and they're on Mars here?
I would say that a lot of them are using shop management systems, or they've been augmenting their methods of delivering or communicating, and probably want to do more, but they may be stuck in the way that they do it. But we're in new times. I mean, this is social media. What Facebook wasn't even around a decade ago, right? Or a decade and a half ago. Yeah. It's just, it's a different world. And I think the younger techs, right? The younger techs that now are coming into the marketplace, they know how to communicate in that medium.
What makes you so special, Scott, that, how you're made up? How could you teach the listener here who is on the fence, or it has been behind the times in some of this stuff, how you did it, how you said, listen, the future is now, I need to be there? I mean, what made Scott Brown want to do this?
I think the primary driver was that I started realizing what it actually took, the investment in being able to be competent and having the tooling, the knowledge, the expertise to deliver the service, to stay ahead of the curve on what the vehicle challenges were being presented. And I found out that there was kind of a disconnect because people are their expectations were totally different. They thought they were driving the old car, right?
But you were committed to training. You knew you had to invest in all the equipment.
Right.
And on the other hand, you couldn't get an ROI if you didn't do something over here on that sales side.
The customers were the revenue stream is, right? So without that valuation, without you able to illustrate what you're doing and validating what you're doing and showing the customer that, hey, you guys care. You give a damn. You're going to training, you're adding tooling and equipment so that you can provide proper expert service on these vehicles. And of course it comes at a cost, but I've had multiple events where, a customer balks at paying for an analysis fee, right? A diagnostic fee or whatever you want to call it. And they'll go to the shop that doesn't charge for it. And we've seen this cycle happen before. We just had one the other day. Car was towed in, no start. Had a new fuel pump, new computer on it. The guy spent a ton of money.
I hate that. This breaks my heart.
And he could have come to me first and paid me for my fee and spent way less than what he had already spent with no effect.
I did a great interview on a concept called the $0 customer with Tom Palermo. They moved 2 miles down the road and they had a new customer base. And so they were doing some analysis that their ARO was down, and we got into the weeds a little bit in a few things. And he goes, he says, those customers, they would, the shop down the road, send them to my shop to find out what was wrong and just find out what it is and then come back and I'll fix it. And he says, we've seen that happen. What the hell's going on?
Wow. That's amazing.
A lot of this stuff just takes some time to settle out. I mean, we have in our business for a long time, bad shops have compensated with Identifix and carpet bombing with mailers. I'm going to fix it with Identifix. I'm going to swap a bunch of parts, and then I'm going to overcome the hole in the bathtub by just marketing like hell. And we don't actually have to have a factory scan tool anywhere.
Yeah.
We don't even need, if we need a scan, maybe we need to pull the code.
We drive it down to AutoZone.
Right.
Well, pull the code.
But you know what I'm saying? And then what ends up happening is that doesn't help customers. Customers talk about it online. There's nowhere to hide. It's not profitable. That paradigm is going out of business. I mean, just look at a lot of those companies that we're talking about that are providing those services are going out of business. Now you have the new generation Diag, et cetera, really top-notch technicians. extremely in demand. I mean, the industry is shifting into this next generation. We just can't get by medicating with these Band-Aids, these bridge solutions.
That's a great word. I love that. We've done some shows with technicians talking about YouTube and then going off the side and having this whole dialogue about the parts canon and how these super professional diagnosticians, when they hear that, they cringe. They don't want to be part of that. They are the elite, and they will, to their death, find out exactly what's wrong.
Right.
And why are we shortcutting this and then continuing to build the bad rep that this industry doesn't need? So heed the warning, everyone. We're after you if you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, like Carolyn said, we've got some legacy things that are happening, and they're going to boil out. Technology is going to demand the skill and expertise. This will happen. I heard this 30 years ago, though, and I hear the same pushback. They say, "Oh, well, fuel injection, distributed ignition, and all that came in, but those shops are still there." This is a different beast. Things have really changed.
I don't know. That's too black and white. Look at how much the industry has improved in the last 30 years.
Oh, it has, yeah.
It's professionalised tremendously.
I'm so lucky to interview such great top shop owners, and I'm at awe of the leadership and the training and and their growth and their culture. It's an elixir for me to hear these great stories. And then I know on the other hand, there's this really large chunk that's not getting it. And not growing and grooming and leading, and they're still throwing the parts cannon out there. And as much as we know that technology will move that, maybe not as fast as we expect, Scott, because there's still the silver bullets out there that can 75% of the time, maybe based on.
Yeah, maybe. But over time, these shops are going to start to realize that they can't get by with doing things the old way. And they're going to have to come up with new solutions. And sometimes training is it. I was at the big event. This is probably going back 10 years ago. And I met a guy from Tennessee. Can't remember his name right at the moment, but he came up to me and said he knew who I was. And I didn't know him. But he said, I decided that I got to do things different. And I said, well, explain that to me. He says, well, this was my process before. I would get a car in that wasn't running right. And I thought maybe the area of the problem existed. I'd go down to the junkyard and get a bunch of parts. And when I started hearing the story, I thought, what the heck? He told me all of his neighbors do the same thing. And they would get the parts and they would put parts on it until the problem went away. And he said, this is ridiculous. I went online. I started seeing guys using scopes and scan tools and doing diagnostics. And I go, I got to figure out how to do this. And so now he went out and started grabbing all kinds of training and woke up. So that was kind of a real edge case, but that was reality.
You haven't forgotten it.
Yeah.
I think it's easy especially when you're on the trade show circuit, and the industry gets real small, and it's kind of an echo chamber, and our responsibility is to make sure that we're getting our messages to everyone, and how we can really spread the word to other folks that don't have the time to go to trade shows or, just staying late at the shop because they got to get that car out because they got to go buy some diapers after work. Just acknowledging okay, yes, we can continue to look forward and try and we see all of our own flaws and we're constantly challenging ourselves to improve. But also, how do we bring people behind us? That's been something from a software standpoint. It's okay, great, make the best in class software, but also make something that's approachable, that's, financially accessible, blah, 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 so that, it's not just constantly trying to have the perfect diamond in the velvet pillow here. We're going to have to all get there together, because not only do we need each other, but also we acknowledge that without that without that communal commitment, we end up hurting ourselves, because we're leaving these other people behind, and they end up souring customers' experiences.
How do we drag them over the line, guys? Any thoughts? Any ideas?
It's not a line, though. It's just.
No, it is. It's a line of commitment. It's a line of change, and
I think that you're doing a really good job with podcasts that I think they're accessible. I don't know, to what extent you're trying to meet people who are out there and what their experiences are.
I think we're broadcasting to them. I think we're winning some over. Trust me, I get cards and letters all the time about that, where we've helped people change. Can you recommend a coach? no, but go listen to these coaches because I want to be as neutral as possible. But some people said, is there a shop owner in my town or in my state that I could talk to? And, the beauty of our industry of the last 5 to 6 years that I've felt is people are willing to share. And when someone's willing to put up their hand and says, I'm ready, then I think we're starting to change the industry. It's that pain point thing. How much does it have to hurt that I can't afford the diapers this week and I got to do something about it?
Yeah. And what I try to preach all the time is don't wait for information to come to you. Go seek it.
Very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's going to miss you.
Well, you've both done an amazing job making that a reality.
I want to mention something that Scott's going to be doing a podcast with P10.
Yeah, that's right. It's
How cool.
Technical podcast, and I'm looking forward. Our first episode is out there.
It is? All right.
The name of it is called Torque Factor.
Okay.
So you can go search it. It hasn't been announced yet. It's going to be announced real soon. There'll be some press releases and
probably by the time this thing airs, it'll already be out there. Yeah. So
we have a good technical article or technical guest talking about 1234YF. Got some update data from Donnie Cipher talking about some issues that Ford Motor Company had over the summer.
Cool.
Along with General Motors, and I've got a couple of other guests on there too.
Well, great. Good for you. We need that kind of stuff. I think our industry is dying to hear something on the technical side. And thank you all for listening to this podcast that God Almighty, we broadcast to this industry to help all ships rise. And so many people are just willing to come on. I mean, we're about how to run a better business and how to be a better leader and how to hire better people and what kind of training events you need to go to. So, it would be a great compliment. So congrats to it.
So thank you. And I look forward to having you on as a guest at some point.
That would be great.
We'll get you on the show to talk a little bit. But,
are you going to the big event this year?
I will be at the big event.
Great.
Yes.
I'll see you there.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Scott Brown, Connie and Dix and Diag.net, and Carolyn Coquillette, Luscious Garage and Shop-Ware. Thanks for being here. I loved this. Thank you.
Thank you,
awesome.
Carm. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.